to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a baller.
Welcome in, one and all, the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast.
Who is that?
What's happening?
Where am I?
What in the
What am
world?
I doing here?
Why are you here?
Well, it's a special episode, gentlemen. And you know me, I show up when things get a little bit special. But yeah, another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast.
The bat signal went off, and you're like, I have been summoned.
Yes, this is not an ordinary episode of the show. So obviously I am here, which also makes it extraordinary.
Yeah, is this a chicken or egg?
A little both, yeah. I mean, we are coming to you from NFL West in Inglewood at the Chris Wessling podcast studio here at the NFL with a really
We
special...
broke in.
We broke in.
They don't know we're
We broke
here.
in and we said, where's your podcast
We're
studio?
not sure you can even hear this because we don't know how the dials work or any of that stuff. We got some of the lights on. And we're here for a Dynasty show, and we're really excited. We got a new partnership with the NFL and iHeartMedia for the Dynasty show, which to me just says, well, we all know, everybody listening, Dynasty is taking over.
Mm-hmm.
People love their Dynasty leagues. It is the year-round fantasy football home for one and all, and so we're here, and we're with you, and we're excited, and
we're with the shield.
I know, it's
Yeah,
special.
we're protected.
We are now
Yes.
protected. And yeah, we kicked Kyle and Betz off the bus on the way over.
Yeah.
They're somewhere in the middle of the United States wandering around.
And they'll be back next week.
They will be back next week. But no, we're out here in Los Angeles. We've got the live show, and we're recording an episode of this podcast, and we're going to have some special guests on the end of today's show. And we're going to be digging into rookies and a renewed look at the entire rookie class from a Dynasty perspective.
Yeah, I think it's about time, when you have the whole pre-scouting before the NFL draft happens, you're grinding the tape the best that you possibly can, trying to figure out how you set your rankings. The NFL draft comes and shakes things around, destroys some things. Sometimes your sweet, sweet love, Sean Tucker, ends up with a medical and goes undrafted. And so you have to adjust your rankings, but then training camp happens, preseason happens, and some more things start shaking
And Sean
out.
Tucker's getting first team reps, and you're back, baby.
Now we may be back. So I'm going to have my rookie rankings open. This one, I'm just going to be editing on the fly.
A live look at
Yeah.
Mike's rankings changing here on the podcast.
So we'll see if you can convince me to move players.
Or you can convince yourself. You may, over the course of your arguments, convince yourself to change a player's location.
But it's not just rookies today. This is also a special bonus My Guys episode from a Dynasty perspective.
Yeah, the Dynasty My Guys on the show. We'll share our individual Dynasty My Guys, and then we'll have a couple of special guests sharing theirs. So I'm just going to tease that along, and you'll probably find out from the show notes. But if you don't read them, it'll be a complete surprise to you. But at the top, a reminder, because it's that time of year, biggest 2 draft weekends of the year, the Ultimate Draft Kit available right now. You can go to ultimatedraftkit.com, Draft Analyzer. If you've drafted, or maybe you've done some of your drafts, I know many of you have several on the docket. Plug your team in. We'll grade it. We'll give you an evaluation. We'll let you know. You can put the Dynasty team in there. We've got the...
Get in the Dynasty Pass. I'm telling you, my rookie rankings are going to be modified.
Yeah, I wish that they could actually be in it and see them moving around and watch it. But
that's dangerous.
But Jason, talk to me about the new optimizer that is part of the DFS Pass, because we've kind of like not talked about that because we've been in the midst of the redraft world and the Draft Analyzer. But when you're getting into the DFS time of year, which is part of the UDK, we've made a change.
Yeah, we've made a huge upgrade. For years, we had an optimizer in there to help you set and create Dynasty lineups, and we thought we could do better. And so we completely rebuilt it. It is ground up different. It is based upon tournament winning strategies from the past. The user interface is much more polished. The tools that you can use, I mean, if you play DFS at all, this optimizer is it's really insane. I'm very excited for people to start being able to play around with it, but that's already just included. So if you play Dynasty, obviously you're listening to a Dynasty show. If you get the UDK Plus, it's going to come with the Dynasty Pass, but it also comes with the DFS Pass. It comes with the Draft Analyzer and so much more. So
Yeah, it's not even just a headline for those that haven't purchased it. Like a lot of you have got the UDK Plus, and it's like we've made upgrades that you didn't even know about. So those are in there for the DFS Pass, and you can find us on X.
still dumb.
It's
Look,
still
until you don't make that sound after I say it, then I can't get behind it.
You can find us on X at twitter.com/JasonFF.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Look, they put it in the doc. That's what he wants it called.
X.com is just
You can't get behind it.
I don't like it.
I don't think we've ever gotten through that part of the introduction of the show without a reaction.
Because it's gross.
X gonna give it to you.
Well, we've talked about this at length, and you can muse on it for 2 seconds, but your biggest point that I agreed with was you already had a word.
Yes.
It's not a post, right? A post you post everywhere. You had a word for you. It's a tweet.
You had a verb. Like
you had it. It was yours.
Kleenex. You had Xerox.
You had Kleenex?
Oh, I was going to
Kleenex
Xerox.
is the off-brand.
If you can't afford Kleenex, check out Kleenex.
Hydrox. But no, you had the verb.
Yeah, and you tweet, and now you just whatever.
No, you didn't want to get into it. Okay.
It's too upsetting.
All right, I guess we can move on to some rookie talk.
Rookie Fever.
All right, it is time to dig back in. Mike, you mentioned it. We have a process. And let's be honest for a moment, especially in the Dynasty world. We pick favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
And we pick them early. And then we expect our dreams to come true, David Bell. We expect the dreams to come true, Tyquan Thornton, and they don't always work out that way. And we've been through enough rookie drafts at this point to see probably every pendulum swing possible. You know, you come fresh off of a year of N'Keal Harry, who once again released from another roster.
Again?
Yeah, former number one Dynasty pick, rookie pick. And then you see the pendulum swing, maybe to the running back position, but then you've had your Royce Freemans of the world, Mike.
Yeah, I am just
your Clyde Edwards-Helaire's of the world.
I've had enough, frankly. I've had enough.
So no running backs, no wide receivers.
No wide receivers. I'm all in. I will patchwork my running backs together from this point on.
Well, I think that'll be the interesting kind of philosophical discussion to be had on the show today, because the running back position has changed. And how does that affect our view of them long-term in Dynasty? And how does that affect our view of the current rookies? Like, Jason, you've been known to be enamored with Bijan Robinson.
I like him a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you write him letters, I'm sure. But the fundamental truth is that the running back position has a shorter shelf life. And when you miss the sting, it's a big sting because you traded, like you went for Clyde Edwards-Helaire a couple of years ago, Mike. Situation, draft capital, the arguments were there. But missing on that has caused you great sadness for a long period of time.
Yes, and I'm reminded every time I look at my Dynasty roster, because Clyde's still there. He just he waves to me from time to time, and I try to ignore that he's still there. It's just to really highlight, in my opinion, just how dysfunctional running backs are for Dynasty. Bijan Robinson is not taking a snap, and he's arguably, and I think justifiably so, the number one Dynasty running back.
I think he's inarguably
the
number one Dynasty running back. I can't imagine in a Dynasty startup taking a running back over Bijan Robinson.
Right.
You've got him coming into his rookie deal, so that means you've got a guaranteed basically 5 years of him. And you don't have that from any other running back.
Don't you dare say guaranteed 5 years when Jonathan Taylor is presently unaccounted for going into year 5.
Well, Jonathan Taylor wasn't a first-round pick, so he couldn't have his fifth-year option picked up. Bijan will have a fifth-year option picked up. So that's where I'm saying I think it's a guaranteed 5. Now, maybe Gibbs is that way because he was also a first-round pick. I don't know, but Bijan will have his 5th year picked up.
That was my second point. Is like Jahmyr Gibbs is now top 5. I mean, like I've seen people who I respect their opinion. Jahmyr Gibbs is already their number 2 dynasty running back. Like that's how the position could just be shooketh.
Well,
in one offseason. It's like, well, the top 2 guys are now someone else, and all the running backs who I liked are just gone.
It's easy right now because the clean slate for Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs and the contract situation to automatically place them there. But we are fresh off of thinking Kenneth Walker was a bona fide locked in, maybe the number 1 overall. Yeah. And if the Charbonnet move doesn't happen this offseason, maybe you're talking about him in the same conversation with those 2 rookies.
Yeah, you would have been top 3.
All I'm saying is that you legitimately have been shown time and time again that you don't know what's about to happen. Because should Bijan's 5th year be picked up? The answer is yes, unless you have 2 catastrophic knee injuries over the course of the next 4 years. There are no guarantees at that position. And at least from a longevity standpoint, the wide receiver position has shown itself more durable once you have a proven commodity.
And not just durable, but they're safer in terms of
getting another contract and being allowed to play football?
No, I'm saying they, like, even if someone else is drafted to the team, they're fine. Like when a running back so if you had Tyler Algier, you made that
right. It's
round,
not a huge disruption.
You're like sweet
in there.
And then now that they drafted Bijan in the first round, Tyler Algier's Dino rank has just absolutely plummeted. Meanwhile, Seattle has DK Metcalf, who is one of the highest ranked dynasty wide receivers. They spent a first round pick on the first wide receiver of the draft, the most talented wide receiver in the draft, Jackson Smith and Jigba. And did you move DK Metcalf in your dynasty rankings? No.
Well, how about the number 1 dynasty wide receiver?
Which, Jamar or Jefferson? Oh,
Justin Jefferson just had Jordan Addison drafted, and no one cares.
Yeah. You just I'm out. I'm out on running back.
Oh, so you've made this is a formal
stardom.
Have you written a document to yourself? New policy?
Yeah, it's like draft day. It's like no running backs, no matter what.
Yeah, patchwork your running backs together in Dynasty. Get some Jeff Wilsons in your starting lineup, and then dominate at wide receiver and elsewhere.
Let's talk about running backs that we love.
Hold on, I mean that bothers me so much from a long-term dynasty manager construction standpoint, because that is probably the prescription that you should always take. But we already know people don't always take their prescription.
Yeah.
And
you know, I love Jahmyr Gibbs so much.
This is what I'm saying, because you want to find the guy. You still believe in your mind. This is why I say the dynasty running back is a mirage of sorts, is because you're building that, that perfect roster. We always talk about those starters, and if you can plug a running back in and they actually pay off on what you believe that they'll be, because there are running backs that had you done that, you would be happy.
Yeah.
Right. That have a longer career, like Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara in Dynasty had a 6-year, pretty darn good run. He's probably at the end of that run.
Sure.
But that's a long time.
I mean, this is why Bijan's down question number 1, because he is actually different than every other player. You haven't had someone like Ezekiel Elliott, like Saquon Barkley come into the league, for several years, where now you have another one. And he is the only one because of those other guys.
What about Saquon? Use that as an example, because when Saquon came into the league, there have been, he has not been a perennial number 1 overall fantasy.
But he was also immediately the number 1 dynasty running back.
But was it justifiable then?
Yes.
Would you look back and say, "I'm glad I did that"?
Yeah, I think you would.
He got hurt.
Obviously Bijan can get hurt, but Saquon comes in. He's the running back 2 in fantasy. His rookie season follows that up as a top 10 running back. Everything looks good, and then obviously he gets injured the next year. Plays in 2 games. Ho hum, but. Even still today,
I don't know what the ho hum was for.
What was that?
That was
all
not
about?
a ho hum moment.
But oh shucks, dang, he's injured. I don't know what you want to say, but my point is,
he played in 2 games.
Even still, last year he was the running back 6, and in Dynasty to this moment, He's still a valuable asset. So I think he was absolutely worth it. When you've got a guy that goes top 10 in the NFL draft with a body that is built to take the workload, that's the issue I have with Gibbs saying that he's guaranteed 5 years or a long duration just because he's a first-round pick. He doesn't have a body that is built for longevity.
A lot of body talk.
So
I'm uncomfortable.
so I think Bijan is literally in a tier by himself for Dynasty.
I think Gibbs can be in that tier.
In the elite tier
100%. 100%.
Where is
because I believe that the Lions could be a threat to be a contending top 5 offense for multiple years. I don't believe that's part of the future for Bijan Robinson. And let's go back a year. What's your view on Breece Hall as a number 1 overall pick in a rookie draft? Is it the exact same view you had then? Body built to take the work. You love Breece Hall with all your heart, mind, and soul.
Yep.
But
he was.
Do you look back and think the exact same thing about him? Look, it may all work out for Bijan. I'm just saying that the landscape changes tremendously quickly every single season, forever and always.
Sure. No.
And it always has.
Yes, that's true. But again, Bijan's a top 10 pick. Breece I loved, but he was a second rounder.
Which I believe last year the argument was that's where running backs now go. He should have been a first rounder.
Even more impressive for Bijan. That's what I'm saying.
Should I just
Bijan
move on?
is in a tier by himself.
Should I just move on?
Yes.
So then you believe in Jameer? Yeah, the goalposts are moving because he cannot say a bad thing about Bijan's future.
No, of course I can't. It doesn't exist. Something to say doesn't exist other than he could get injured.
But no, but you're telling me you can.
No, because Clyde couldn't happen to Bijan.
No, correct. Absolutely correct. Clyde coming out his rookie season was pre-NFL draft was my running back 6.
We're changing the whole show today, Mike.
We're
not talking rookies. We're talking rookie.
We're talking Bijan.
One guy.
Well, we on the main show we have the Bijan Minute, and on the Dynasty show we have the Bijan Hour.
But here's my bigger point.
I never would have hosted if I knew this was what it was going to be.
Can you, with 100% certainty, say that Arthur Smith and company
thank you
won't draft a running back
thank you
in the top 3 rounds next year?
Yes.
You
no. With 100%.
No, you can't. You can't. You want to know why?
The probability is there, but that's not 100.
Outside of injury.
No.
That's part of probability.
Well, okay, but I'm just saying like the injury is the only case.
What did Mike just ask you? Can you guarantee with 100% certainty?
I can guarantee with 100%.
Who's the quarterback next year in Atlanta?
I can guarantee with 100% certainty that if there isn't an injury, Bijan Robinson will not be replaced by another third round.
Is he in the room? I honestly want to know.
Come on out, Bijan.
Bijan, is he here?
Right, move on.
I don't know if we can. All right, we will. And we're not even talking running backs yet. So why don't we take a quick break and come back and talk about a different position? Give Jason a chance to catch his breath. Okay. I mean, I don't know how many bids he is on Bijan rookie cards on eBay right now. Quick break, back with the quarterbacks. All right, welcome back into rookie fever. Jason has a fever of his own. Let's start at the quarterback position because rookie quarterbacks, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe this is not your perception, but looking at dynasty drafts that we have done historically, the rookie quarterback has been both the worst pick I've seen and the best picks I've seen because they traditionally, I can remember so many of these, late first, middle of the second, even early third round rookie quarterback selections that end up, like if you get a starter, if you get the guy that's the foundation for your, an NFL franchise, and you get him there, it's been a steal in every draft.
In our main dynasty league, it's been one of the best picks that I've made. I got Joe Burrow at the end of the first round, and then I got Jalen Hurts in the third round.
You got Hurts with the final pick of our rookie draft.
Perfect example. And I even remember when Burrow was getting drafted. This was not a top 5 rookie pick by any stretch of the imagination. And so they've been some of the best steals, but then if you end up saying, hey, I want to steal, and you got Zach Wilson or
Trey Lance. Too soon, Mike?
I did want to ask you, Mike, does Clyde sit on the bench next to Trey on your dynasty team? Do they hang out?
Look, we're looking for new opportunities.
Both guys are looking for new opportunities?
Yeah, look, any moment.
Oh, the want ads out there?
Yeah. It's a Craigslist.
But now, so we've got, it's a Craigslist. So now we've got, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson.
Oh, you're leaving Bananarama off?
You bet I'm leaving until he moves into a second. No, you can talk Will Levis, but his training camp's going about like the draft day did. So when you look at how, scouting these players, the pre-combine, the post-combine, and then you look now at training camp and their first chances to take snaps with a professional offense against a professional defense. We got some numbers here over the last decade. Rookie quarterbacks who start week 1, they average 4.5 wins. So that's that's kind of the average situation that you find. And it makes sense, right? These are teams at the top of the draft, but you have a kind of a rough first season in the NFL. So when I'm looking at evaluating with my eyeballs rookie quarterbacks for dynasty purposes, I'm not looking at, hey, are they going to win in year 1? I'm looking for some other intangibles to latch onto of whether I made the right selection. A couple that come to mind is I'm looking for poise in the pocket.
Sure.
I know when we watched Josh Rosen in year 1, that was something you never saw those. You never saw special games from him. It was just the same mediocrity week after week. I look at a player that with the poise, that means they're going through progressions. And I look at like some level of resilience because you're going to lose a bunch of games. So do you come back out there the next week and your confidence hasn't been shattered? You're a guy that can be built upon. Maybe you guys saw that with like a Kenny Pickett last season, even though he went through some struggles. How are you evaluating these guys at this point in time? And what are you looking for outside of wins?
I can tell you right now, for me, I'm looking at athletic special traits. That's what I'm looking at. And it doesn't have to be legs. Like with Joe Burrow could, he had a very special ball that he could throw.
Throw it over that mountain.
He could throw it over them mountains. And he was athletic enough to do some on the ground as well. When I look back at all of these rookie drafts and all of these quarterbacks that have succeeded or failed for a while, it's not 100% universal, but it is certainly a big enough degree of hit rate based upon that alone that I just almost don't care about anything else. So like Anthony Richardson obviously checks the box of something special athletically, but like Bryce Young to me doesn't, CJ Stroud to me doesn't, and what I'm not saying is that they're going to bust.
You got a bunch of okay.
I'm not saying
angry people.
Yeah,
with
no.
Those two comments,
I'm not saying they're not going to be a good NFL quarterback. I'm saying they're not going to be special for fantasy football. And I think that if in your startup drafts, and it is different if you're in a 2 quarterback league, but if you're in a 1 quarterback dynasty, then do you really care about drafting Kirk Cousins? It's a win. It's not a bust, but he's not someone that's really...
You don't see Mike, maybe you can speak to this too. You don't see Bryce Young's ability to, his poise in the pocket, his ability, his accuracy, the things that made him this number 1 overall pick. You don't think that can evolve into viewing him like Joe Burrow?
No.
Viewing him in that lens?
I don't. And I hope I'm wrong, but that's just my evaluation.
Mike? Yeah, I don't see Burrow as the ceiling, and but to the it's not dunking on Stroud and Young at all. I think they're both going to work. Like I think that I still preferred CJ Stroud as the NFL wise. Anthony Richardson is the quarterback you have to go after for fantasy, but Joe Burrow is the outlier. And to be fair to Joe Burrow and everybody else, the Bengals have equipped him. And not just like, okay, fine, we'll get you a weapon. It was T. Higgins the year that Burrow was drafted. Am I remembering that correct?
I believe that is true.
It was right around it. And then the next year there was the huge nonstop debate on Twitter of, do you take the offensive lineman?
Penei Sewell?
Yeah, you take Sewell, or do you take Jamar Chase? And the hilarious graphics of like the wide receivers, like Burrow on the ground with Jamar Chase. Or if you have the lineman, it doesn't matter who the wide receiver is. And they made the choice to go Chase.
They made the chase.
Yeah, they made the right choice. And so are other teams willing to do that? That remains a question.
Well, look, it took them some time to do it, to build around him. They were a bad team that first year, and obviously he dealt with the injury. I just wanted to bring that up because, maybe you view him more as the I would win the way I'd win with Teddy Bridgewater, which didn't translate to fantasy value.
No,
but
I'll go stronger than
Derek Carr.
Bridgewater. I think a higher ceiling than Derek Carr. I think that both Stroud and Young can be that like 6 to 10 range.
For them to be special for fantasy, like those two guys need to turn into like a Drew Brees level player. You have to be basically Hall of Fame caliber on the NFL field to be a pocket passer that's super relevant for fantasy, that's worth it.
You could be Matthew
fantasy.
Stafford.
But even, look at Stafford, that the run, the Super Bowl year with the Rams. What do you have, 40-plus touchdowns and a whole bunch of yards, and he was barely relevant for fantasy.
So are you discounting? So you're just discounting him because he can't run. You said that wasn't the case, but that is really what it is. Because you're classifying him as a pocket passer, and you're saying if he's not a Hall of Fame pocket passer, he can't succeed in a dynasty, projection. Because otherwise, I think Bryce Young's fully capable of being a top 10 passer in the NFL at some point in time.
I think for fantasy, that's really what I'm looking at. So when I'm taking these quarterbacks in the draft, when Burrow was coming out, it was the best prospect that I had ever watched. His final season was perfection on a field. I was so excited.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best ever
to draft him. I like Bryce Young. I like CJ Stroud. They're not that. They weren't Burrow coming out, and they're not a mobile quarterback. So I think they're going to be mostly wasted picks. I really do at this point.
Well, we're not necessarily weight, but like a depth pick.
Yeah.
It's not
they're not going to help you win a championship. I don't believe that they can be a plug and play quarterback streaming option in fantasy. Or if you're in a 2 quarterback league, obviously that shifts. You need that second quarterback. You need a Derek Carr,
you need
Kirk Cousins.
Second quarterback in regular dynasty.
I've often been jealous of people who do pick up that depth quarterback in the second or third round, and it was instead of, Anthony McFarland in Pittsburgh, where
right.
People take a shot on those guys in second and third round of dynasty leagues, maybe third round of dynasty leagues for the upside, but you get literally nothing out of that. At least if you got a guy that was middle of the pack, you have added to that dynasty roster and you've solidified your ability to, look, injuries happen all the time. I won a dynasty championship with Alex Smith after Patrick Mahomes went down. So at least you get a return on the investment in some degree. And just to give you some data around rookie quarterbacks, if they start 9+ games, which sounds, pretty reasonable for those quarterbacks that have been given that opportunity, among rookie quarterbacks with that threshold of 9+ games, 75% of them were a quarterback one in the next 2 years.
Okay.
So, there is something to be said about having that early opportunity, which often comes with draft capital. Obviously, you turn the page from a couple of guys that are going to do a little bit more with their arm, as a fundamental part of their game, and you turned Anthony Richardson, and obviously, the fireworks started shooting off into the sky. You get plenty of on the run, 65-yard training camp videos of Anthony Richardson. He's obviously
see that jump pass.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He's a very, very unique player, athlete, individual quarterback. This is why the Colts were willing to spend what they spent on him.
Mm-hmm.
So let's transition that to dynasty, fantasy football, upside, and where you evaluate Anthony Richardson at this point in time. I'm sure you guys have said this stat on this show before, but every rookie quarterback that has crossed 80 rushing attempts ends up a fantasy force, and they end up maintaining that top 10 quarterback play per game. Anthony Richardson obviously has that in the cards. How high is too high for him in a dynasty draft after we've seen what's taken place and he's been named the starter? There isn't a Gardner Minshew worry.
I would say, so if we're talking first round, Bijan, Jackson Smith, Gibbs, Addison and Flowers, however you have them ranked, and then I got Quentin Johnson after that. I think after those, the 4-pack of wide receivers and the 2 running backs, I think you can go Anthony Richardson there.
So let me question that.
Okay.
And Jason, you respond after I bring this up. What if Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen was in your rookie draft with those names that you just said? where do they go relative to those five names you just mentioned?
Yeah, if we knew he was going to turn into,
I guess that's what I'm saying.
That caliber,
if that was
then
an outcome that's you deem about 50%.
Yeah, if that's the case, then I would say he should probably go 2 or 3. I wouldn't take him above Bijan. Like, for instance, if I had Jalen
You wouldn't take
Hurts,
Jalen Hurts above Bijan in a dynasty startup.
right? Exactly. If I had Jalen Hurts right now and I could trade him for Bijan, I would do it. But if you're talking about JSN and Jahmyr Gibbs, you can put both those guys ahead of one of those star quarterbacks if you really believe they're going to hit. But he's right there in that conversation. I think the issue is he's such a raw prospect, and there's a lot to dislike about his game. He doesn't have a lot of experience. He looks like Cam Newton, but he doesn't have the stats. Cam Newton, won the national championship. That wasn't the resume that
you got some Trey Lance fears here.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of Trey Lance fears. Now, I will say this: my personal evaluation, and I think Mike and I have different views on what we believe of the traits and the talent. I think he's going to get it together. Like, I think Anthony Richardson's going to be special, both throwing the ball and running the ball. So I'm willing to take a more bullish approach on Anthony Richardson. But I totally see, like, Mike and I were watching film together at one point, and I'm showing him these great plays, and now he goes, "Okay, now watch the next.
Show me the next pass."
Yeah, now let's watch the next one. It was just horrific, and I totally get that. But there is just something special about what he can do, and I think that he will be. I think in the NFL he'll have his skills honed, and he'll be equipped to succeed.
Let me shine some light on something pretty interesting, because I know when Josh Allen had his, I would say, accuracy emergence, let's just call it that, maybe not as odd as it seemed. Andrew Luck was 54% as a rookie. Josh Allen, 52.8% as a rookie. Trevor Lawrence, 59.6% is all completion percentage as a rookie. Justin Fields, 58% as a rookie. Lamar Jackson, 58% as a rookie. On average, if you keep the starting job, your completion rate rises 4% in year 2. So it just goes to Jason's argument that if you're special, you kind of figure that out. Like, that is something that you're capable of figuring out. I mean, there were reasons to discount Justin Fields as a passer. Maybe there still are. Josh Allen, Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence. But special players with that draft capital have historically, recently, Lamar Jackson went from 58 to 66%. It's becoming a trend at this point in time.
Sure. With
some of these players that have been. Now, Trey Lance, we don't know because we didn't get to see it.
Yeah. My counter argument would be all those quarterbacks you listed off besides Josh Allen were elite passers in college. Andrew Luck had 3 years as a college starter. First year was pretty rough, and then he completed 70% of his passes the next 2 years. Lamar Jackson was incredible as a passer, even though the NFL was
still 59%. 56% in college in Louisville. I was going to look that up because he was not.
He was down that low?
Yeah, he was at 56. 57% was his 3-year average, and he was 59 his last year.
Yeah, you remember the evaluators thought he could only be a running back. He wasn't good at throwing the ball.
And then, but still 3,500 passing yards. So, okay, so
I think in this NFL they can figure that piece out for some people.
Some of them can, because there's mechanical things that you can fix, but Lamar was also a 3-year starter. Anthony Richardson was essentially a 1-year starter.
That's the scariest thing to me is the lack of experience, the talent, and even the inaccuracy. I'm just not worried about.
The experience makes sense to be concerned about.
Yeah,
and not having, like, there are some problems in Indianapolis. Like, if he doesn't have Jonathan Taylor to take the pressure off, which I think look, Taylor might be back. Maybe he's back by the time you're listening to this, but right now, it looks like he's kind of on an island where he's going to have to do a lot to make things work.
Even if he's back, is he back long term? Because if he's back, it's just this year.
Seriously, 1 year though. Help Anthony for 1 year. Let's talk running backs, because we got to move down the rookie line here.
Bijan Robinson.
Let's talk about running backs.
All right, let's go past the first two.
past Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, they're good. Draft them.
Okay. Their draft capital did change, at least with Jahmyr Gibbs, and I'm not going to stay here long, but it did change because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about your pre-combine, post-combine, post-draft. You didn't evaluate Jahmyr Gibbs as your number 2 overall prospect, Jason. You had Zach Charbonnet in that spot, and then draft capital and team fit changed that dynamic, and now you have Jahmyr Gibbs, I assume, ranked higher in a dynasty league.
Yeah, certainly.
But both are sharing backfields, just significantly different draft capital.
Yeah, it's different draft capital, but it's the number 12 overall pick. You build an offense around a number 12 overall pick when you do that against public. You're going to get public scrutiny for taking a running back at 12. They did not care. They were excited. That is a centerpiece of what they want to do. So I am in on Jahmyr Gibbs. I wasn't. Him being 3 for me at running back was not anti-Gibbs so much as it was pro-Charbonnet. Yeah, Charbonnet's super good. That's my belief.
I'm going to be honest with you, Mike. I don't know if I want to live in a world where Bijan Robinson and Zach Charbonnet disappoint Jason Moore. If we come back a year from now,
he will be in shambles and never recover.
In this hallowed studio this day that we talked about these two players and just what I'm picking up here, haven't hosted the Dynasty show that many times, but I'm picking up a 100.00% chance that they're going to be good.
Well, the Bijan. I don't think that necessarily for Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet could easily have the Rashad Penny treatment his rookie year when he was a first-round pick, and they said, Chris Carson, you're the dude. When I talk to beat reporters in Seattle, they keep telling me Kenneth Walker is the dude. Kenneth Walker is going to be the starter, and Zach Charbonnet is going to come in and spell him from time to time. So if that happens, he's going to be a disappointment for fantasy this year and going forward. I mean, if that happens this year, it's not like next year you think, oh, well, they'll change it. No, that's the new normal. But Bijan's 100%.
100, maybe more than 100%. The hardest part about the Charbonnet Walker thing is that if that wasn't true, if their plan was for Zach Charbonnet to take over, they're not telling you one iota differently today than what they would tell you if Kenneth Walker was going to be their guy.
Mm-hmm.
Because Kenneth Walker was a good draft capital pick who had a great rookie season. But if they saw holes in his game, they're not telling you. They're not telling me. They're not even going to change the practice reps that way. They're going to instill confidence in both of these guys because they end every season with DJ Dallas and Travis Homer because of injury. So historically, so that one is going to be an interesting one to watch. I've loved what I've seen from Zach Charbonnet in the preseason. We'll see what the second half of the season looks like. And again, running backs in Dynasty, it's almost like you're buying yourself a year or two. Tank Bigsby's the last name I'm going to bring up because I almost feel like he's reaching a posh point in his popularity this offseason. I certainly believe in the talent of Tank Bigsby. I also believe in the talent of Travis Etienne. Welcome to Dynasty Fantasy Football and trying to evaluate good team, great backfield, 2 players that can catch the ball. You know, how in can you be on Tank Bigsby, and what can a Dynasty player do right now with him?
Yeah, I think you can be decently in. We had a live show this past weekend, and I talked up Tank Bigsby. I think this season he can have a good rookie year.
Is that 800 yards rushing? What is that?
No, I don't think it's 800 yards rushing, but I think it's 600 yards rushing and 8, 9, 10 touchdowns and being involved in the passing game. He this is a coaching staff that has usually employed a committee. Everything they have said and done backs that up. They said at the end of last season that they wanted to give Travis Etienne more rest, that they needed to keep him healthy. Then they went out and spent a day 2 pick on a really good back. Tank Bigsby in the pre-NFL draft was my running back 4. He was the next guy up that I liked, and everything we've seen in preseason has just looked outstanding. Now, again, Travis Etienne's the starter. So it's kind of like a Zach Charbonnet situation where he could be the goal line back, he could get pass catching, but he's the clear backup.
Who's better, Travis Etienne or Kenneth Walker?
Oh, that's a great question.
Who'd you rather have in a dynasty league? See, I think this is the secret
Oh my
question.
goodness.
This is the secret question that answers the next question.
I think
If you could see those listening at home, if you could see Mike and Jason's faces, they're in it.
This hurts me.
This is like,
Wait, let's think of our answers.
I really try to not let personal biases ever enter into how I think about fantasy football. And this question is hilarious because I have Ken Walker.
yeah.
Jason has Travis Etienne. I would rather have Ken Walker.
And I think I would rather have Ken Walker.
Oh, okay. Phew.
So
Let me ask you this.
So then, Zach Charbonnet, what round was he drafted?
Second
Second
round.
round.
Okay, Tank Bigsby's 3rd round pick.
Correct.
You like Ken Walker more.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the gap between Charbonnet and Bigsby in a dynasty draft has been significant.
Yep.
Should it not be?
It's certainly closing.
Yeah, it is too big, and especially if you're doing startup drafts where the rookies are involved, the gap is enormous between those players.
I'm moving Tank up right now, boys.
See, this is the live ranking
I've been
adjustment
tweaking this whole time, and
from Mike.
And I've moved Tank up. I moved Dalton Kincaid past Charbonnet.
It's interesting because I think Jacksonville would love to
Deal with it, Jason.
I think.
No.
What did you just say you did?
I
did
missed
Dalton
it.
Kincaid
Mistake.
above Charbonnet.
I think that's great. Yeah.
We're
not at tight ends yet.
Yeah, but where are you now with? Because you love the film for Tank, but you have also ended up becoming a Devon A-Chain stan.
Mm-hmm.
You're in your rookie draft right now. Who are you taking, Tank or A-Chain?
I feel like he took a gut punch with A-Chain.
I
don't know if he's recovered from his long view. I feel like he is sad.
I would still take Devon A-Chain for now ahead. But the injury...
See how he talks?
Yeah.
There's no pep in his step.
There's none.
Because
the tap dance shoes
the
are
truth
off.
is,
He's in his socks.
The ceiling for A-Chain is a good fantasy player, but it's never he's the lead back. I don't think so.
Probably not.
I'm just happy.
But Tank Bigsby could become the lead back.
I'm just happy that a couple weeks ago, before any NFL football has been played, I was able to take a quick victory lap on Devon A-Chain.
You really did.
Because and I enjoyed it.
What?
He had a good run.
Just a good camp or a good run.
Yeah, I mean,
or
it
like
didn't
one
matter.
of his co-running backs said, he looks good.
I'm starting to worry it's never going to. I'm
feel
never
it.
going to be able
I can
to
feel
victory
it.
lap
I feel like
A-Chain
the
again.
whole career got summarized in one injury somehow.
And if you never get to, that means who gets to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the wide receiver position because, look, Mike has made a vow apparently to himself.
Yes.
That this is where he's going to be investing his dynasty draft capital, valuable dynasty draft capital. Since 2014, if you are a first-round wide receiver with 50-plus receptions, you are guaranteed to be drafted as a top 30 wide receiver the next year. That stat is really powerful because you're talking about all you got to be is a first-round wide receiver that doesn't get injured, really. That gets an opportunity. 50-plus receptions as the bar. You get drafted higher as a top 30 wide receiver, and I don't know if this is just a recent trend. I mean, last year I've talked about in our league in redraft, I just drafted like 5 rookie wide receivers late in the draft because I knew they'll never be drafted here. They're either going to flame out and you'll be like Brashad Perryman or what looks like David Bell right now, or you're going to be a top 30 draft. I mean, look at who we're talking up this year.
Mm-hmm.
Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. These are players that we have a great deal of confidence in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's your kind of window, right? It's your opportunity to dive in and get somebody that has a great opportunity. I mean, you look at that stat, and a name that comes to mind before we get to the major rookies is Jonathan Mingo, because
I love Mingo.
Where was he drafted?
Not in the first round.
He was a second round.
So he's a second round draft pick. He
Doesn't apply to the stat.
Yeah, he will have the opportunity, but it was pretty high in the second round, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Carolina.
Yeah.
I'll look up the exact
he's
spot.
just like, he's a second rounder like Jonathan Taylor was.
He was picked 39.
Okay. All right.
So high second round.
So put an asterisk on the stat for me. But if Jonathan Mingo has 50-plus receptions in his rookie season, we all know how you feel about Adam Thielen. And you've got injuries to DJ Chark's, a rental at the wide receiver position. I just wonder if that stat can be informative about opportunity. Michael Wilson, not a first rounder, but that he's going to have 50 plus receptions, I think, this season. Are those diamonds in the rough in your mind, or are you more focused on those top guys?
I mean, the top guys are the fun guys, but Mingo is. I've loved him this whole offseason. I think that he's with a really smart offensive coach. I love the fact that he's with the first overall pick, who is a quarterback, and he gets to grow that relationship. Like Mingo's not a Jamar Chase level talent, but it's like if Bryce Young hits, his guy is probably going to be Jonathan Mingo, and then you have years of that being the tandem, and if they execute and use Mingo the correct way, I think he can be I won't go special, but I think he can be a difference maker for fantasy.
Jason, talk to me about changing views on Jackson Smith-Njigba, Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. Since we've gotten into training camp, post-draft, opportunities, where's the journey taken you on these guys from our early February, March evaluation?
JSN and Jordan Addison, to me, were guys I loved before the draft, guys I love after the draft. They didn't really change. Zay Flowers was a player that I thought was good. I did have a good evaluation on him, and I like the landing spot in Baltimore, but he has changed dramatically, whether it's his PR team or the Baltimore Ravens videographers.
The PR.
You're the PR team,
by the Zay Flowers PR team.
What if it's neither of those? What if it's Rashad Bateman and Odell Beckham?
My point is,
he has not Rashad Bateman and Odell Beckham.
He has risen a lot to me based on the non-stop fire that he has put on the field. No one can seem to guard him. It's been from before the NFL draft. I remember Daniel Jeremiah coming on one of his podcasts, on the Move the Sticks podcast, just talking about how, I think this was at the Combine, he was just saying Zay Flowers won the day. Everyone said he just moved different. And that's kind of what you used to hear about Justin Jefferson, was he just moved different than every other wide receiver. And now you just see him out there just torching people over and over and over.
Let me clarify what I meant, Mike. I didn't mean maybe it'll be those guys as the better players. I meant maybe their inability to really separate themselves or make a mark in training camp has been part of the reason why Zay Flowers has jettisoned up people's boards. Like, look, it's all relative, right? You're in training camp. Zay Flowers looks great. I've seen all the news, and we love training camp. But Beckham hasn't, and Bateman hasn't. So, like, relative to what he's been on the field with, we've seen very little Bateman, basically none.
Right.
So there's no hype on Bateman whatsoever. And then Beckham, I think he's a known commodity at best at this point. So, look, I'm not surprised that Zay Flowers has been the talk of town in regards to what competition he has.
Yeah, Bateman, I think, still has a chance, honestly, to be the number one guy for the Baltimore Ravens. But Flowers, the draft capital, it came through. His production profile, granted, smaller school, he's at Boston College, but I mean, he's hitting the numbers in terms of the team, the share of receptions, yards, and touchdowns that we want to see in a dominator. And sometimes you see those production profiles, but those guys end up being drafted later. Like Trey Palmer's production profile is absolutely incredible. Draft capital's not there. Tank Dell, who has been rising, but the draft capital not there. It is for Zay Flowers, and the opportunity is there for him to quickly rise and be the number one wide receiver, where Jordan Addison can be fantastic. Jordan Addison will not be the number one wide receiver on his team ever. Where Zay Flowers could be.
Let me give some perspective to those of you that might be hoping for bounce back seasons from rookie wide receivers that didn't work out in year one. Because this is kind of mind blowing. If you don't average a 14% or higher targets per route run, you basically are done as a future value in Dynasty. Since 2014, there has been one wide receiver who, as a rookie, did not average higher than 14% targets per route run that ended up with a top 36 season ever, which means really bad things for Tyquan Thornton, who was under that number, Khalil Shakir, who I just heard went to 5th on the depth chart.
Yeah.
I have him on my dynasty team. I'm like, what the heck do I do with Khalil Shakir? This is going to be an eternal hold that will never pay off.
Nah, you'll have your answer soon.
Why is that?
Because you'll know what to do.
Oh, okay. David Bell, 11.5% targets per route run last year. Another example of Cedric Tillman's looking good. You've got Elijah Moore in the fray. You've got Amari Cooper. Like David Bell has no path. So that could be a lesson for dynasty managers of just like cut bait on these guys. If you can trade them on the like you could probably trade Tyquan Thornton for something. You trade them on the promise of a play. Trade them on the promise of a good game. Maybe not on counting on a bounce back.
It's something that we talked about early on the Dynasty podcast months ago of what do you do with these wide receivers who you had hopes for, you put in a decent amount of draft capital, but they fell flat on their face. And the answer is take the probability and move them away. Like I think that Sky Moore wasn't in this range, obviously, of the 14% target per route run, but he was just like he was so disappointing. He was a close player of I don't really know what to do. Should I trade him away? Should I hold and for better days? But these other players, they still hold value. Like they hold their perceived value out in the dynasty market, and the dynasty market is everything when it comes to dynasty football. So if your player does not surpass this threshold, my advice is trade them away, try to recover what you possibly can, and just know that history is on your side, that this player is not going to bounce back.
All right, I want to get to our special guests and our Dynasty My Guys segment, so we will be brief here, but let's talk about the tight ends for a moment. Has the cold, dark tight end heart of Jason Moore been softened whatsoever with the great optimism? I mean, it's been really positive. Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta.
Laporta's optimism is through the roof.
He's playing every down with the starters.
Musgrave has just been unbelievable.
Every down with the starters in Green Bay, Luke Musgrave. And then Michael Mayer's making some plays. This straight line speed, I saw him beat a corner that he got lined up against and beat him down the sideline, didn't get the target.
Michael Mayer's really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting buried in the possibility category.
These are 4 really talented tight ends coming in. And this is the year where the whole rookie tight end can't really be great for fantasy football. This is the year that gets smashed and buried.
Locked into stone.
Is what everyone is telling me.
Okay.
And it ain't happening. Now, this is a dynasty show. I think these guys are good. I think these guys will have the chance, and I'm hopeful that maybe they can actually change the tight end position for fantasy football, and we can have more than just 1.5 guys that are worth locking in your lineups. Dalton Kincaid, Michael Mayer specifically, I think that they have real shots to be actual weekly difference makers on the on the tier of a George Kittle and a Darren Waller, a really special good fantasy asset. I don't believe it happens this season the way that this time of year everyone always thinks it's going to happen for these tight ends.
Let me test it real quick. Dynasty draft, would you rather have Cole Kmet or any of those 4 guys in a dynasty?
In a dynasty startup,
obviously, I mean, you can take Kincaid off the list, I guess, because you're probably going to choose him. But I'm putting it to the test with existing kind of yet to break out, but also not disappointing names.
Yeah,
Cole Kmet.
I think I would take all 3 over Cole Kmet.
Okay.
The guy, he's got the bag.
No,
Chiga Okonkwo or those 4 guys, or all 4 of those guys.
Mike,
I'll take the
4 rookies. All 4 of them.
Yeah, I think I will as well.
Greg Dulcich are those 4 rookies.
Oh man!
See, this is.
I'll take Kincaid and I'll take Mayer, and then
you like Mayer that much?
You like Mayer more than Laporta?
Oh, I like Laporta and Musgrave more than Mayer.
Yeah, for me, Michael Mayer's my number 2.
Interesting.
All right,
you must love Jimmy G. That's what I heard.
I love Michael Mayer.
All right. You guys good with that?
Yep.
Ready to move on? All right. Let's take a quick break, and we will be back with two very special guests in our Dynasty My Guys segment.
Dynasty My Guys.
All right, we are back here, the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast, and we are excited to be joined by, we're in the NFL's Chris Wessling podcast studio.
Yep.
We're at the NFL. Let's bring the talent in here.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Grant, Michael Florio of the NFL Fantasy Football podcast. Thank you so much for joining
What's
us.
up, boys?
Appreciate the invitation.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Yeah, you got, it's a decent place here.
It is.
Not too shabby.
We're getting comfortable, stretching out a little bit.
Yeah.
Getting cozy,
What's it like being on for the first time, a great podcast?
Get bodied.
Shots fired immediately.
Now, that's not even fair because this isn't the first time we've had Marcus on.
No, I went with the Dynasty show.
I mean,
I threw our podcast.
Our podcast. Our podcast sucked.
I
This
was like,
one.
you really came to our house and started grinding your feet on our couch. Like, really? What the heck?
That was a good save, though. You buried the main show. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
We're talking Dynasty. We're talking Dynasty My Guys for the very first time.
Okay.
And look, this is your flag planting moment. This is your chance to talk about somebody you're actually targeting in Dynasty with that long view in mind. And it's been a rough and tumble few years putting the betting on fantasy wide receivers that don't pan out or fantasy running backs that don't pan out. Sometimes you can feel like you're up against it all the time. Marcus, let's start with you. Is there a name that's just your guy in Dynasty?
Right now, I really like Evan Ingram, right?
Oh, my man.
You like it? Because
Now they're friends again.
Yeah, we're best friends again.
we're cool now. Here's the thing. You remember Now and Laters, those little candies
yeah.
that they're like,
Rip your
waxy,
teeth right
waxy
out.
piece
Yeah.
of fruit bricks, basically.
Yeah.
Evan Ingram is sort of like that because in the now, you've got a guy who gets plenty of opportunity. And even in what's going to be a very crowded pass catcher group there in Jacksonville, because he's a tight end, the bar for what we consider to be good production is set so low that he doesn't have to be great in order to get you a whole lot of things. Not to mention the fact that you look at some of the other elite tight ends, right? You got guys who are getting older, say a Travis Kelce. You got guys who are a little bit beat up, like a George Kittle. Mark Andrews has a lot of draft capital involved in getting there. Or you've got guys with uncertain quarterback situations. What happens with TJ Hawkinson next year if Kirk Cousins isn't there? We hope Desmond Ridder is the answer in Atlanta, but we don't know that for sure. There's uncertainty, whereas Evan Ingram is locked in for the next few years with Trevor Lawrence, who's absolutely the future in Jacksonville. So you have that short-term, sort of gratification with a guy who's going to get a lot of targets and a lot of opportunity, but you can also sort of go down the road. He's locked in with a 3-year deal there in Jacksonville. And honestly, I feel like, if you're looking ahead, 3 years is sort of a good measure. Anything longer than that, you're getting yourself in a lot of uncertainty. So Evan Ingram sort of weirdly is sort of that kind of mid-shelf, not too high on price, not too low on quality that I think can really hold you over well in a dynasty situation.
When you look at the career arc for Evan Ingram, and all of a sudden, that was like later and later.
Yeah.
Because it all came,
it was.
it didn't happen. You saw the athleticism, and then you got burnt, and you got burnt, and you got burnt. What's funny is I haven't heard it pointed out the fact that the continuity at quarterback, which is something that you don't have with Kyle Pitts necessarily. I also really dislike the take because I don't want Mike talked into Evan Ingram anymore than he already is. But I like it. I like that perspective.
I'm sowing chaos seeds.
I know. Michael, how about you?
So the entire time Marcus was talking, I was trying to think of a candy reference that I can.
We're gonna tie that in.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Be a
So-
Twizzler.
So James Cook is like caramel M&Ms, right?
Oh,
Which are the best M&Ms in my opinion. If you haven't had them yet, amazing. Devin Singletary has been playing M&Ms this whole time, and like no one wants the Bills running back because James Cook is getting a little bit of hype now, but for so long it was like they can't be anything more than an RB3.
Sure.
And I'm like, well, yeah, that's because Devin Singletary is the definition of league average, but James Cook is far more explosive. He's a better pass catcher. And Devin Singletary has seen at least 175 carries in 2 straight years, at least 50 targets in 3. If you give that sort of volume to James Cook, who played every single snap in preseason with Josh Allen, except for if they were 19 yards away from first down or closer, or further, I mean, he's getting all the opportunity there. He's in a high-powered offense, and I think with his explosiveness there, he could take what Devin Singletary was getting to be an RB3 finish and make that top 20. And if they're giving him goal line work, I think he has RB1 upside. And right now, people are kind of like, even if they like James Cook, they're like, I'm comfortable taking him as an RB3 or something like that. And then if you look like long-term, the Bills have not been a team that invests in running backs. So I think James Cook is here to be the starter for at least the next 3 years until his contract expires. And I agree with Marcus. In Dynasty, I don't want to look anywhere further than a year or two, even 3 at the max. So he's going to be tied to a good offense with a good quarterback for the next 3 years as their explosive starting running back. That, to me, is a player that I want on my roster. But people keep being like, but Josh Allen's going to steal all his touchdowns and the Bills running backs aren't anything special. And I'm like, cool, that just makes it more affordable for me.
And they move their arms like that when they say it.
I didn't even realize I was doing that.
You actually preempted my pushback, which was going to be this ever-present fear that the Bills were going to select another, like every year going to go in saying, I think James Cook is the guy, and then they pulled the Zach Charbonnet surprise and like they did in Seattle. But you are right. They have not spent a lot of money or draft capital at the running back position. So, I know we went into years thinking Devin Singletary wouldn't be the guy, and then he just ends up being the guy. I certainly love the talent of James Cook, and I'm excited because he's, I think we expected to be in a murky situation this offseason. Maybe Damian Harris would have more opportunities, Latavius Murray lurking in the shadows. But James Cook's like strangle-held. That's a new...
Yeah, that's right. That is
strangle-held the backfield.
Yeah, no, I like that pick a lot. Young, explosive, great offense, and it doesn't cost you a lot. So I think he's a pretty good target in Dynasty. Now, if you want to hear a bad my guy target in Dynasty, Mike, who do you have?
So the way I approached this segment was I want to find a player who can give me value
This comes with a preamble, I see.
Yeah.
Well, because we've given him some...
His candy is black licorice.
Because I want a player who has value right now, has at least some security. Like, it's not just we're one and done, but you also can go trade for this player, I think, for extremely cheap. And that's why it is Dallas Cowboys wide receiver Brandon Cooks. Hold for applause. Hold for applause.
Hold for applause.
Looking at facial reaction.
How did that hit? Did that hit like black licorice?
I definitely, it's, somebody gave me a double salted licorice once, and it was kind of like, I tried like,
Like the kombucha lady?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, I get the now part of it. It's just, to quote Adam Sandler, he's old.
Yeah.
He's old.
So, looking at Brandon Cooks, the question is, does he still have it? And in my opinion, he does. Last year was extremely weird. It was full of injuries. It was full of this player is just inactive this week. Why? Like,
Cryptic tweet.
Because we don't want to play him because we're mad at him. And he was dealing with a really bad situation. He wanted to be on someone who can actually compete for a Super Bowl. He is just nonstop fantasy football superstar. I mean, for years and years and years, Brandon Cooks has been incredible. Last year was really the first down year that we've had for him in a long time. But when he was finally healthy, the final game of the week, final game of the season, what did he do? 5 for 106 and a touchdown. Like, Brandon Cooks can still play. The Dallas Cowboys looked at what they had and the decisions that they had made at the wide receiver position, and they traded for Brandon Cooks. I love when a team is telling me with their actions that we want this guy to come in here. I think Brandon Cooks is immediately the number 2 wide receiver over Michael Gallup. Dak Prescott is he had a little bit of a down year, and there's rumors, we're going to run. Well, I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. And what if they can't? Leave a margin that maybe they can't run the offense that way, and they have to go back to Dak Prescott airing the ball out. Brandon Cooks benefits. Dak has shown us in the past that he can be a prolific fantasy quarterback. And then the contract situation for Brandon Cooks, they got him this year, and then next year it's a very, very team-friendly deal for Brandon Cooks. So I think he's there for at least 2 years. So I don't care that he's old, because he could just kind of finish up his true fantasy days. on the Dallas Cowboys who I think have the pieces around him that he doesn't have to be the guy. Like, he's got CeeDee Lamb to be the number one guy there. Brandon Cooks just says, cool, I'm going to be like the Jordan Addison on this team. You got your defense, you focus on CeeDee. I'll handle my business on the outside, give you big plays, be a very usable wide receiver, and try and go try and trade for Brandon Cooks right now, and you'll get the reactions of you go to the manager who
Team back.
you go to the manager who has Cooks, and they'll be like,
I can get something for
Like,
him.
hold on. You want Brandon Cooks? Like, no, don't even send me anything back. I'm just going to ship him over to your team.
What would
you handle it?
What would you give up for him? Would you give up a second round pick for him?
If I felt like it was going to be a lower second round, I would start with a third because that might get it done. If you a third and like a veteran, I think that might get it done.
So I will say this, like when you started, I was kind of like, all right, I just want to see where this goes. And as you sort of led me down the path, I kind of started to come around, especially when you mentioned the second year being a team-friendly deal, right? And if you're thinking, as long as you're not thinking way long-term, I think that sort of works. And then you mentioned Jordan Addison, which just warms this old Trojan's heart right now. So, you know what? I will admit that, like, I was skeptical, but you have, changed my way of thinking, Mike.
The contract especially, because I was going to be like, what happens next season when he's traded
was
to
exactly
a new
what
team
I
again?
thought.
Like, for the fifth time.
That certainly could happen, but it's looking at it. So he is he's a $10 million dead or cap hit should they keep him, but he's a $6 million dead cap. So it's like looking at the difference. It's like, why would you not just keep Brandon Cooks around for one more year?
I feel
Okay.
like a lot of teams could have said that.
Yeah,
Right.
Now, what is what?
And no
yet
one
he's-
keeps Brandon Cooks
and yet
around
he
more than a year.
produces.
Is he got like a messy locker
That's what
situation?
I don't understand, right? Does he chew loud? Like, I don't really get it.
Terrible driver, 2 spots. I don't know what it is. All right. I do appreciate the concept of, you can't play dynasty fantasy football always to win 3 years from now. You have to make some moves to capture value today, to win today. You can't always be looking in the long view. You have to get, Raheem Mostert's a guy that basically was almost off of rosters last offseason. Very playable for a good portion of the year. Could have been picked up in Dynasty for pennies.
For the waiver wire.
From the waiver wire. I mean, so there are those players that can contribute in the short term so you can secure a title. Mr. Moore, we need a Dynasty My Guy.
For me, it is Kyler Murray. He is so grossly undervalued right now.
Cardinals don't even value him.
Right? Exactly. You see how I mean, that is how everyone is viewing it. The Cardinals are going to suck. Are they even going to bring him back? Are they just going to tank for the whole season? Yada, yada, yada.
Caleb Williams.
Yeah, Caleb Williams is going to be our future quarterback. That is so irrelevant to whether or not Kyler Murray is good for fantasy football next year and this year and the year after and the year after. It doesn't matter who he plays for. He's not going to not play. Kyler Murray is a good quarterback. Look at what he's done in his career. He came in and was the quarterback 7 rookie season. The next year, the quarterback 2. Fantastic. That is a league-winning type of asset. And then the following year, he was the quarterback 10 in only 14 games. And then last season, he was the quarterback 6 up through week 9. Obviously got injured and then tore his knee. And so now all of a sudden, because of the stink of the Cardinals, because of the injury that
It's real too.
Oh, it's real. Because
Not only 120 degrees out there, but
yeah, when it's stinking
put the
and
Cardinals
hot,
out in that weather.
it's like you're in a porta potty. But nobody really values Kyler right now, and he's currently injured. This is a dynasty outlook. This is a 26-year-old player. Is he going to be perfectly back this season running like the Kyler of old? I don't know. I think he could. Deshaun Watson did when he came back from his ACL. He ran a lot that first year back. So he could actually be good for the second half of this season. But who cares? He's a great quarterback that in the future, if you're in a 2-quarterback league, to me, he is like someone I have to go out and target because usually guys like that you just can't get a hold of in a 2-quarterback league. Who's trading Josh Allen in a 2 QB league? Who's trading Jalen Hurts? Nobody. And Kyler Murray is just not seen of in that tier, but when it comes to fantasy points scored, he kind of is in that tier.
Well, and then trading 101, you can play that angle up all day. Talk about the lack of confidence the Arizona Cardinals seem to have in him. New head coach, terrible football team.
Yeah, so
He might not even be the guy there.
to me, I think it's your opportunity to get a real, true fantasy difference maker in a dynasty format where you can just take the lumps and say, this isn't a trade for right now. This is a trade for a 26-year-old quarterback who's probably got another 7-8 years of good fantasy output.
I just look forward to when he salvages Kyle Pitts' value when he's the starting.
Yeah.
Let's
You know,
go.
when he's slinging passes
When
to
he
Kyle Pitts and
rescues.
Drake London. You
I
know,
like
running
that one.
RPOs with Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. You know,
Oh, he's so- I love that call because I have a lot of questions with Kyler for this year. Like, even forget is he going to play or not? Like, when he's on the field, I'm like, I looked at it. 30% of his fantasy production last year and career wise are from running, and I'm like, is he going to run as
Right.
much this year? I don't know. But long term, we might look back on this in 7 years and be like, that was the lowest his fantasy value ever got.
I think that's my point. I think that barring some other catastrophic injury, this will be the lowest point. So get him. I mean, it's stock trading. You want to buy at the basement.
Oh, I thought you bought at the top.
Oh,
That's
got
what I
a
did
lot
with
to
Doge.
learn, Andy.
I'll
that's
never
what
recover.
That's what Reddit told
That's
me.
what Reddit told. And then hold, no matter what
It's
happens.
diamond hand.
Oh, man, you don't want Diamond Hands in Dynasty. You are in trouble. Mr. Trey Lance over there. I'll close it out. Dynasty My Guy is actually the same name that I have as a redraft My Guy this year. I am chasing the white whale in Dynasty, which is a running back
That
that I
ended
can.
well in the story, just so you know.
It's a running back that you can, I think, actually acquire. You got to pay up, but has longevity, and that's Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. It's not a surprise everybody wants him in Dynasty. The reality is you cannot acquire Bijan Robinson. That is not going to be achievable.
From my cold, dead hand.
Yeah, it's not achievable. But I'm looking at the Jahmyr Gibbs situation, first round draft pick, which means you got, a fifth-year option coming his way. I look at that Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, rookie season comparison. David Montgomery is not there for the next 5 years. Jahmyr Gibbs, pass-catching backs, they're the ones that actually have been paid historically, the Christian McCaffrey type of contract. And I'm going to go trade pretty much anybody in the running back room to go get him right here, right now. I'd go out there and I'd swap an Austin Eckler to a team that doesn't want to do the dance with the committee in Detroit. I'm chasing the white whale of actually having somebody at my running back position that I don't have to rotate every single year. And I believe Jahmyr Gibbs is that guy.
Well, you have him right now as your startup running back 3. So that means you'll trade just about any other running back for him. And that makes sense if you believe in the white whale you're chasing, just so you know what it is you're chasing. It's not a great dynasty running back. It's a Detroit Lion running back after Barry Sanders.
And what am I
It just
saying?
Can't happen. It's a curse.
Yeah, Amir Abdullah, Kerryon Johnson.
I mean, are we going to
Bell.
throw Javid Best in there?
Javid Best.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I
That was
That's
so
what I was
good.
thinking of.
There it is.
I started him on some Thursday night or Monday night game, and he had a big touchdown run, and I thought the future was there. Man, what am I doing?
The heart wants what the heart wants.
It does. I mean, just the ability to get maybe the Kamara, the 80 receptions for 5 years in a row, 6 years in a row, longevity at running back, I wouldn't mind it.
I just, I think my only fear, and again, depends on how long you're looking, is just hashtag Lions.
You know what? That is the hardest part. I mean, there is just there are things that people say that just are true. And they just end up working out that way. And you're like, oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't judge it by the team, but it just happens that way. Special thanks, Marcus Grant, Michael Florio of the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. Please check them out. Thank you for joining us today.
Appreciate it.
Dynasty My Guys for the very first time here on the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast.
Getting nasty.
Special thanks to the NFL having us in here to enjoy this beautiful studio and record this episode of the show ahead of our live show here in California. It's been fun, gentlemen. Thanks once again.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Off we go.
Yep.
NFL season, here we come.
Yeah, Borg and Betz will be back next week. We will see you then. Goodbye.
We picking them up on the way back?
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.